Hi, it's Linda Fox. I'm Senior Reporter at PhocusWire and I'm in the studio at Travel Technology Europe 2020. Hi, and I am also with, today, Julie O'Sullivan, and you're Head of Digital Business Travel for Travelport.
Hi, Linda.
Okay, so thanks for joining us. So I just picked out some of the themes some of the things we're seeing, and I thought you could comment on them in terms of how they're translating into the corporate travel world. Sure. And where Travelport feeds in.
Absolutely.
So if we start with kind of machine learning and AI.
Yeah, so I think, we've looked at a lot of trends as part of our research this year. This is our fourth year doing it. In the past, we've had some hits, we've had some misses. But really, the reason we're focusing on machine learning this year is because we think, even though it's in its infancy, it has a huge potential to apply to the travel industry. Now, it already does apply. There's lots of things being done. But up to now, it's really around forecasting, prediction. We think now the next sweet spot is around that flight disruption management and proactive care of the traveller. There's a lot happening in that space. Huge potential in its infancy.
On that, you have that deal with IBM, is that right?
That's correct.
How does that feed into kind of the corporate travel world?
So to be honest, I wouldn't be the expert on that, but we call it the IBM Travel Manager. So that's Travelport's big data coming together with IBM Watson and essentially having that forward view, so that proactive view in terms of managing spend, but lots of other things for the corporation. So it's really the coming together of the science and the big data from Travelport.
Okay, great. So then voice. Now obviously you've got the voice application into EasyJet,
yes.
And I would assume that that's going to be a big part of your push this year, is more on the voice side. So why are you seeing it as such a big bet?
Well, the thing is, a lot of people would be skeptical about voice at the moment because what we have seen to date is not great use cases, to be honest, really looking at low value FAQs. But we see a shift in two areas at the moment. Number one is that natural language processing, that those capabilities weren't there 2 years ago. And the second one is not relying on third-party systems, but people bringing voice into their own applications. So it's for that reason, bringing it in, but also the capability of natural language processing is really going to drive voice forward. We actually feel quite strongly about it, and we think that even though it's a small channel now, I say don't get caught off guard. We think that if you're not in the voice game, you probably won't be talking to the next generation of travellers at all. And
do you see it as more of what you've done for EasyJet, or do you kind of like what areas do you see it evolving into?
I think it has, there's a lot of crossover with machine learning. So I think as we elaborate the machine learning use cases further, really voice is just going to be where it starts. At the moment, it's search, but it's going to be right through the booking. If you look at Google Duplex, for example, with one simple basic request, it can take you from the search pod right through to confirmation at the end of a car rental booking. So I think we're going to see the use cases everywhere. Really, where it brings value to the traveller, that's where it will be.
Been writing a bit about it recently.
Yeah, well, we actually do. So it's a phenomenon that we know has taken over in the East with WeChat and Grab and Gojek. We actually see super appy tentacles happening quite a lot in the West. So if you look at, for example, even the airlines or even Agencia, so Agencia with its obviously already had hotel and flight and ground transportation. Recently, they introduced the ability to alert the hotel that if your flight is delayed, you're going to be, without even having ticketed or booked the flight on the Agencia platform. But we're also seeing it in other areas. Like we actually think at Travelport that a ripe area for the super app world is in the trip management and TMC space. So everything that Trip Actions are doing, even in the likes of Amex with their trip recommender, and also BCD bringing in every type of booking, hotel, car, flight, rail, ground, and managing that whole trip. So our opinion is actually that it's the TMC and trip management space that's in the next couple of years going to be the new super app application.
So you do see then a travel specific super app? Because always in the past, you had, social media for travel, and they didn't do so well because everybody turned around and went, well, we've got Facebook for that.
Yeah.
But you could foresee a travel super app.
The jury is most definitely still out.
It is, because of the frequency.
Is. Absolutely. Nobody knows really what's going to happen, and it's going to be interesting to see who, if anybody, really does deliver on it this year and next year. But I think if we were to place our bets, we think that TMC and trip management space is ripe for it at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. Now data, where do we start with data? It is just being talked about everywhere at the moment. Do you see, if I was to say to you, a year ago, 18 months ago, people were talking about data, talking about de-siloing, talking about getting to grips with it. Do you think that has now happened essentially, and we are seeing them understanding it and putting it to good use?
I still think it's very early days. I mean, we do talk about it a lot. It's one of the big words, big data.
Right.
But I think, if we go back to machine learning and voice, in order for that to work effectively, it's about harnessing the data in the right way. So every traveler interaction point in terms of your profile, your past behavior, and we see a lot of the TMCs now talking about that single profile that they're trying to build. It's really rubbish in, rubbish out.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think we're getting there slowly but surely as an industry.
Okay, good. Now, disruption. What are you watching at the moment in terms of startups in the industry?
Ooh, interesting question. We kind of have, feelers out everywhere. We look at everybody. We look at a lot of the new startups, especially here. I mean, there are so many. Trip Actions is one that we think is actually quite interesting what they're up to, especially in terms of their machine learning and the predictions and the support that they provide to the traveler. But I think the ones that we are looking at really back to that super app phenomenon, but also that self-service phenomenon. We talk about that a lot, and it's a holy grail. We think the ones to watch are the ones where we can really just let a traveler do what they want to do with very little interaction from them. Through data, understanding their previous behavior, what other travelers are doing, what their colleagues are doing. There are so many startups in this space, but we think the people who can make that journey as frictionless as possible, as much as that's a buzzword that we throw out, they're the ones that we're watching, and there's many people in that space.
So would that be, in a niche, so say, you mentioned earlier on flight disruption, or would it be someone who can provide the bigger piece?
I don't know if somebody is going to provide the bigger piece really, because it's such a fragmented industry, and that's why we don't have the super app phenomenon here in the West yet. So I think really it's going to be I don't know. It's so hard to say. Is one person going to own the overall customer? That's very unlikely. I think it's about each player making sure that they just provide as much value as possible to their users, and that's really the route to success in our opinion.
And have you seen anything in the past 2 days that you've thought, wow, I hadn't thought about that, or that would be amazing, or anything like that over the past couple of days?
I think there's been a lot. I mean, there's been really, really some interesting stuff. Potentially also Travel, which is just in the stand beside us. They're doing some great stuff. We saw Trip Actions with their new payments. A lot of talk about Grab recently. I know they're not here, but the recent investment they got, the 856 million in terms of the financial services. To be honest with you, there's just so much interesting that's happening. It's difficult to choose one particular one. I think we've been very much focused on the Travelport side. It's a completely new era for us. We have a very exciting journey ahead of us in Travelport with the next generation platform. We've been really telling that story because we're genuinely excited about it. So lots of interesting activity around today.
Great, Julie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Linda.